welcome to this edition of Joy in Our Town. I'm Ferrell, Tata, your host, and today I'm delighted to welcome our guest, Chris Green. Chris is the Senior Director of Communications with the American Cancer Society, and today our issue is health, and our topic today is breast cancer awareness. So thank you so much for joining us today, Chris.
Great, thank you for having me.
So can you talk a little bit, just to jump right in, about breast cancer? Can you talk a little bit about the impact of breast cancer as far as how many people are diagnosed in a year nationally?
Absolutely, and I think most people know someone, whether it's a family member, a friend, whatever, has dealt with breast cancer and probably knows a breast cancer survivor, really. And so it's 232,000 women, we estimate, this year will be diagnosed with the disease, including a little over 6,000 in Virginia. And it is the second most common type of cancer in women, just behind skin cancers, all types of skin cancers. So it is very prevalent, and like I said, most people know someone who's been touched by the disease at some point.
Have the numbers been increasing? Have they stayed the same over the last couple of years, or how is it trending?
Yeah, so the incidence of the number of people getting breast cancer, there has been a slight uptick in diagnoses. And so that's not just that there's bad news, there's more breast cancer happening. Breast cancer is much more likely to happen in women as they get older, and the population overall is aging in the United States. So much of that is related to the fact that there are more women in the age group of people who are likely to get breast cancer. So that is happening on the incidence side of the numbers.
And the awareness too, probably. I mean, you know, we're hearing about it all the time, with October now being dedicated to breast cancer awareness. I wonder if that's increased people going to find out if they have it.
Yeah, that has happened. And in fact, we saw that as mammography really began to be established as an early detection tool over the years. And like you said, more awareness. So you're seeing pink ribbons and walks and all the types of things that raise awareness. And so the good thing that comes out of that is that there are diagnoses can go up when you increase awareness about these detection tools. That's absolutely
right.
So. Some of that is not bad news, because we know that early detection is a good thing in breast cancer.
Right, absolutely. So can you talk a little bit about, are we making progress against this disease? It
is, and so you hear that news about, well, sometimes you'll see incidence has gone up in a particular year or something like that, but it's undeniable that we are making progress. So since 1990, we've seen a 34% decrease in death rates from breast cancer.
That's fantastic.
That's a big number, and it's, you know, it's easy to get caught up in the percentages and all that, but that really represents thousands and thousands of lives, thousands of, we like to say, birthdays that are saved, and anniversaries and things like that. And that's happened because of increased early detection. We know that women are finding it overall at earlier stages, which creates all kinds of options for treatment that you don't have when it's detected in other stages, and a better chance for survival. And at the same time, while that's going on, we're funneling resources into research, and we're learning about better, more targeted ways to treat breast cancer. So that combination of early detection and improved treatment options is creating lives saved, really. So I think a lot of people wonder, gosh, is the awareness really making a difference? And all the pink ribbons, and maybe I've participated in a walk at the American Cancer Society that make a difference. We are making progress, and that's good news.
That's great news. So can you talk a little bit about who is at risk?
Sure. Well, the big thing to remember, overall, any woman 40 and older needs to be thinking about breast cancer, top line. So
age is one of the biggest risk factors.
It's age. It really is, and that's why our guidelines say, starting at age 40, begin to talk about having annual mammograms, and doing that every year because of that age risk factor. And then, of course, there are other things, a family history of the disease, particularly your mother's sisters, your own sister, that type of thing is something to talk to your doctor about, and say, hey, I'm in this category, so I may be at increased risk for breast cancer. So maybe in consultation with your doctor, you have that conversation and say, maybe if I'm high risk, I start earlier. And that's a decision to be made individually based on your risk factors. But I think the key is most women who are diagnosed with breast cancer don't have that risk factor. So you don't want to let down your guard. If you're 40 and older, get that annual mammogram. And that's so important to do it every year, because we do see that there's a lot of compliance with that, getting that first mammogram.
Right.
And then it's the idea of doing it over time and repeating it every year, because the benefits are in getting it annually.
So at one time they were talking about doing it every other year, but the American Cancer Society says get it every year.
Yeah, we still are saying every year, starting at age 40. And there's lots of information out there about what to do about cancer and detecting cancer early and all that kind of thing. And at the American Cancer Society, we take our responsibility very seriously to look at all the evidence that's out there, and it can be overwhelming to see that. And so the public can trust us to look at everything to say, today the best information says get an annual mammogram starting at age 40, and trust the American Cancer Society to watch all that's going on, all those studies, all that information, and review it with scientists and everybody from all the sectors of the health community. And then if we need to change it, we would. So we are standing by. It does save lives. The evidence is there that annual mammograms at 40 saves lives.
Well, you bring up a very good point, and that is that there is so much information, especially with the internet. And when any woman gets any kind of diagnosis, they're going to get on their phone and their computer. But the American Cancer Society is still a great resource, and you are sort of a clearinghouse of all the latest information. So people should come to you to check out, to see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's it. And that's the key, is that we really want to be that for the public. And that's why we remain independent, and we just want to be a trusted source for women or anybody on cancer-related information. We take that very seriously and commit resources to making sure that we are cutting edge on that, understand what's going on, and then can cut through all the information. Because if you do, you say, hey, I've got a lump, and you Google that, and you'll get all kinds of information that can really be scary, or it can be confusing, and what you need is the best, most current information so you can make informed decisions, and we like to help people do that.
Well, Chris, let me ask you this. So in our area, the Tidewater area, it is a, it's a transient area. We have a lot of military, and also with the insurance changes that, your insurance may change year to year. Can you talk about how, is it important, or does it matter if you go to the same place to get your mammogram every year, and if you're having the same doctors, or if different doctors? Does that matter?
I would say that doesn't matter. What does matter is that you do it every year, and you go to someone you feel comfortable with. So it's often said the best screening you get is the one that you will get. So somewhere that you're comfortable. And it's individual choices in healthcare, and feeling comfortable with your physician and your team. And so that's important for individuals to make that choice. But again, going back, the important thing is do it every year, and make sure you have a mammogram every year. And if you're moving around, it's nice. It's very accessible now in terms of where you can get mammograms. And then
now they have mobile. There's
units. Lots of ways to do it. And certainly there are access issues for women in certain groups, which we're working on as well, to help make sure that everyone has access to mammograms.
Now, can you talk a little bit about the genetics and how genetics plays into the breast cancer?
Sure, and that's big news. In fact, American Cancer Society research years ago now funded a researcher who established the BRCA1 and BRCA2, the BRCA genes, that said there's a link between these genes and breast cancer. And so that's the first step. You understand there is a link, and then you can begin focusing research there about, well, let's understand that more clearly. What do we do about that? Does it affect treatment decisions? And all that kind of research does eventually lead to more targeted approaches to detection and treatment and things like that. So yes, there is a proven genetic link to breast cancer. And so that's also an individual decision that women have to make with their physicians about when to get genetic testing. Do you get genetic testing? And early detection? So that link is there. It's part of the puzzle. There's lots of. Certainly, most breast cancers are not related to the two BRCA genes. I think that's important to let people know too. Even as we understand these different risk factors, that for most women they don't have any of them. So it goes back to that important point of, even if you don't have those risk factors, still need to think about it.
So your American Cancer Society, they don't make a recommendation that if you have the BRCA gene, or to go to find out if you do, you're saying that that's a conversation you need to have with your doctor.
That's exactly right.
You let the doctor make that choice, or a family decision.
With decisions. And so what we would do is provide information about what are the implications of that. What does it mean to have that genetic link, and those types of things.
So what does the American Cancer Society do to recommend, what should they do if they have a diagnosis?
Sure. So certainly that is a scary point in time if you've had a mammogram and you get the call that says, hey, there's something suspicious here, or maybe even you've found something suspicious yourself and you're going to explore it. The first thing that is really important to remember is a suspicious mammogram finding may not be breast cancer, and if your doctor's calling you and saying, let's follow this up, let's do an MRI, let's do something to explore this further, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have breast cancer. Follow the advice of your physician, go down that path and do the right test to figure out what is going on. Then if you do have a breast cancer diagnosis, it is very important to have support and resources, information, and guidance on an ongoing basis, and the American Cancer Society is very involved in that. We have our 800 number set up now, which is 800-227-2345. We staff that 24 hours a day,
That's
7
great.
days a week, so that, hey, it may go something like, I've heard I had breast cancer, I know much more than that, what do I do next?
Right.
So on that call, we give information and resources that are related to that. Then later on down the line, I've figured out I have breast cancer, I'm thinking about these treatment options, what's the science say about these? And then even later on, you might say, gosh, I have these treatments going on and I need help getting a ride to a medical appointment, and we can help with that as well.
That's fantastic.
So it's you're not alone,
Right.
and it can be very scary. So certainly friends, family, faith communities are all important to people, but
Right.
also knowing that there is a place to call
Absolutely.
and get information and guidance. And another thing that people don't realize, if you or someone in your life is dealing with it and you're not sure what to do, you can also call us.
Oh, yeah.
And say, hey, this is what's going on. How can I be supportive? What kind of services and programs are available to this person in our area? We can help with that too.
Now, can you talk just briefly about there's an MRI, there's a mammogram, there's ultrasound. What's in order?
Yeah,
What should a
sure.
woman
And that's
do? Can you request an MRI?
You can, but you know, a lot of that is personal decisions with your physician, and what types of insurance, what kind of access
Right.
do you have to all the tests and all that kind of thing. I'll say the positive thing is that there are all of these different kinds of options and things that we are learning about breast cancer and early detection and treatment. And so we're saying, you know, for us, mammography is the gold standard. We do that every year starting at 40. And then these other things are available as tools that you work out with your medical provider and understanding what's going on. You might have someone who has a mammogram. There's something we might want to look at a little different. They might say, hey, let's do an MRI now, or something like that happens. And so that's exciting because we're learning more about what to look for and what tools are available, and there are more resources and tools available than ever.
Now, just a real simple question, but can breast cancer be prevented?
Well, and for the most part, we don't understand that fully. We need to keep exploring it. But what we do know, for breast cancer and many cancers, there's now really a proven link between having a healthy body weight throughout life.
Wow, so it's weight is much more prevalent than...
Yeah, and we're understanding the link now with so many other things. So what do you do about that? Well, we're saying, so maintain that. Get 150 minutes a week at least of moderate physical activity. Try to eat 2.5 cups a day of fruits and vegetables, and keep that healthy weight. So it's something that is really cross-cut. I'm sure people are feeling like, well, I'm hearing that about almost every health issue today, and it really is true that it is really important to think about nutrition and physical activity and maintain a healthy body weight, and that does relate to breast cancer as well.
That's really interesting. That's new information for me. Chris, we thank you so much for being with us, and we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're actually going to have a breast cancer survivor join us to this conversation. I'm Ferrell, Tata. This is Joy in Our Town. We've been talking to Chris Green, who's the Senior Director of Communication for the American Cancer Society. We'll be right back. Welcome back to this edition of Joy in Our Town. We've been joined by Chris Green, who is the Senior Director of Communications for the American Red Cross. I'm Ferrell, Tata, your host, and this segment we are welcoming Gloria Newsom. And we're so excited to have Gloria. She is an actual breast cancer survivor, and she is going to be talking about just the real-life experience of surviving breast cancer. Welcome, Gloria. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cheryl, for inviting me.
Welcome back, Chris. So Gloria, first of all, we just appreciate you so much being willing to talk about your personal experience, because it really does, it will resonate with so many people, because as Chris mentioned in the first segment, we all have people we know that have gone through this. So can you talk a little bit about when you first got your diagnosis and what that was like?
When I first received my diagnosis, it was in November of 2009. In the beginning, I felt fearful, I felt afraid, I cried and I cried and I cried. And then all of a sudden, my faith kicked in. And I said to my doctor, okay, it is what it is, and whatever it is that we have to do, I'm ready to get it done.
So was it a mammogram, or was it just an annual checkup?
I found my own lump.
Oh, okay.
I found it myself, and it was painful. And I have a little bit of knowledge about breast cancer, and I know that they say most of the time when you find a lump or a little knot, and if it's painful, that is usually is not breast cancer. But it resonated in my spirit that it was, and so I made an appointment with my doctor, and I was getting ready to go on a trip to the convention. And so when I came back, I got my mammogram, and I knew myself that it was cancer. So I just waited to get all the confirmation from the mammogram and the ultrasound, the guided needle biopsy, and then from my doctor, and then get myself ready to be prepared for surgery and to move forward from there. So I did ask my doctor one question. I said to her, what is the difference between having a mastectomy and a lumpectomy? What is the survival rate? And she said it's usually about the same. And so I chose to have a lumpectomy instead of having a mastectomy.
So when you met with your doctor, did you sort of sit down and she sort of put all the options and the different, told you the plan of attack of what we're going to do?
Yes.
That probably was really helpful to know. You felt like you had a part of all these decisions that were being made.
Yes. My doctor was very surprised that I was well versed in my family history. So I knew my family history. And also I have background because I worked in radiation oncology at DePaul Hospital for almost 15, 20 years under, at that time, the oncologist was Dr. Frazier. And so I knew and I understood some of the things about breast cancer, some of the treatment planning. But she sat me down and talked to me about having the surgery first, and that the lump would be taken out, and how she was going to go in, and then sending it to the lab for frozen section to get a diagnosis, and then wait for the final diagnosis to come back. And while we was waiting on all of that, I received a letter from my primary care physician to go ahead on and to see my oncologist. An oncologist was assigned to me, and after the surgery, a few weeks later, I met with the oncologist. I was given chemotherapy. It made me very, very sick, but I hung in there because I knew that it was what I needed. And then after the chemotherapy, I had a regimen of radiation therapy. And I'm here today because of all of that.
That's wonderful. So you probably feel very strongly about getting early detection. Can you talk a little bit about your feelings about early detection, and also what you would say to a woman who maybe is afraid to go just because she's afraid of bad news?
And I think that's what hinders a lot of women from going to the doctor. Sometimes they feel their lumps and they just put it off because they are fearful. And they're fearful because the word cancer for many has always meant a death sentence.
Right.
And so I would say that early detection, it doesn't mean that it is a death sentence for you. It only means that you can begin a regimen of treatment so that you can live. And I would say to any woman who is fearful, remember, it's not just about you, but it's about your family, and it's about life. And the Lord gives life to all of us.
So when you obviously have a really good attitude, and you made a decision that you were just going to, it is what it is, and we're going to fight this, but how important, or what would you say attitude, how does attitude play into the healing process?
positive attitude plays a major part in your healing process. You have to be positive. You have to have a desire to want to survive, to want to continue your life as it was before you found out that you were a breast cancer patient. You have to be able to understand that you are still lovable, you're still beautiful. I remember one incident when I first had chemo and I wore a wig to church, and the wig got wet because I sweated so hard. Took that wig off Sunday afternoon and put it on the table. It didn't dry out until Tuesday. I said, oh no, never again. I stood in the mirror and I said, God, I can't do this. I can't do this wig. And the Spirit spoke to me, said, you're a beautiful African-American queen. You don't need a wig. Put your makeup on and your earrings and keep on going. So I didn't wear a wig. I walked ball. I sat in church ball. I preached ball.
That's awesome.
And I've just gotten so accustomed to it.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Okay, so before you had cancer, and then since you know, as a cancer survivor, can you talk about maybe some misconceptions that you had before that you realized were not true after you went through it yourself?
To be honest, I really didn't have any misconceptions because, like I said, I worked in radiation oncology. And I'm a very inquisitive person, and so I like to always read and study and ask questions. So I kind of watched and worked closely with the doctor and asked questions. But the misconception that most women have is that, you know, I'm going to die. Life is going to be over. No one is going to love me, and that breast cancer is going to change my whole life. But that's not true. You know, you're still lovable, you're still beautiful. You just have to believe in yourself, and you just have to, you know, continue to prepare yourself to be the kind of woman that you were before you found out your diagnosis.
Well, and aside from your personal experience with this disease, how has this affected other people in your life?
My sister, age 29, died of breast cancer.
Oh, my goodness.
She found it herself, the same as I, at age 24. And because she was so young and because she was still in the childbearing age and her reproductive system and hormones were very active, she had a kind of breast cancer that was a rapid grower. It grew fast, you know. So she only lasted about 5 years. And I had a dear friend. She was a deaconess at our church. I stood beside her bedside in July of 29 and 2009, yes. And she had double mastectomy, and that February of 2012 she passed. And you know, that really, really just hurt me. And when I do funerals for people who have breast cancer and have gone on, it just makes me realize how grateful I have to be and how I need to share my story with others. I have no problem sharing my story with others because I believe my story will help someone else to be encouraged to go forward in life.
Well, and Chris, we had talked a little bit earlier about the younger you are, sometimes it is a more aggressive cancer.
Yeah, we do see that in younger women. That is, you know, we talked a lot about starting mammography at age 40 for women at what we say average risk. But like Gloria said, knowing your family history is important. So when you learn these things, you know, you talk to your doctor about it, and it may mean that you make some different decisions about, you know, maybe having higher risk, so we start looking at that earlier. So it's important to know all that stuff and be informed, like Gloria was.
Yes, because my doctor had me to take the genetic testing, and we were, you know, we were just kind of sure that it was going to come back, you know, that my cancer was genetic related, but it was not.
Oh my goodness, so it had nothing to do with the genetics.
No, it had nothing to do with my genetics and my family history. And so, and I contracted my disease at age 58, and so I was much older. And it was,
I can't believe you're 58 now. You look amazing.
No, I'm 63 now.
I know, but I mean, you don't even look like you're 58 now.
I'm 63 now, soon to be 64 in December.
Oh my goodness.
And, but, you know, one thing is important. When you know your family history, you can talk up write to your doctor
right.
and let your doctor know, this is what took place, this is what I believe that we need to do. Because she did ultrasound in her office and she couldn't detect it.
Yeah.
And perhaps the machine was too small, but I told her, I said, I know. I wanted to have the needle-guided biopsy.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that is sort of to your point earlier about the attitude. Part of that attitude is having a proactive attitude that you're going to tell the doctor, this is what I want. I know my family history, and I want additional testing.
Yes.
So what would you say to a woman who might be listening, who's facing this? What would you say to her and her family? What encouragement could you give her?
First of all, I would say to the woman, know your body. Listen to your body. Do self-breast examination. Keep your physicals with your primary care physician. You notice any changes, let your doctor know that you have changes in your breast and in your body. The key word is to be knowledgeable about what's going on and taking place with your body, and to get your regular doctor's appointments. If you are at the age of 40 and have not had a mammogram, I would encourage you to have your mammogram. It is a way of early detection. I would say to family members, support the person who has breast cancer, whether it's your spouse, your mother, your sister, your brother, your daughter, any family member. Support is good.
And you obviously, and I know everyone appreciates yours. You've taken your experience, and you're passionate now about breast cancer education. Can you talk a little bit about your Victoria's Sisters in Pink group?
Victoria's Sisters in Pink is the breast cancer support group at our church, the historic First Baptist Church downtown Norfolk, and our ministry leader is Sister Paula Sales, and she started that. She talked to me after I was diagnosed that that's something she really wanted to do, so of course I encouraged her to go ahead and get it done. And we meet, we support other sisters who come not only from our church but from other churches. And recently we just opened it up for others to be a part of our group, even though you may not have breast cancer. We keep up with the information that's out there. We bring in segments of new information. We encourage each other to be a part of each other's lives.
Well, Gloria, thank you so much for being here and being so transparent about your story. And Chris, I thank you so much for joining us. You both have provided some wonderful information. And this has been Joy in Our Town. I'm Ann Ferrell Tata. Thank you so much for joining us today.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town brought to your home every day. So write Joy in Our Town, P.O. Box